Here we are, Solveig and George, coming to you from ELCZ, Evangelical Lutheran Church in Zimbabwe, Africa. We are going to talk to you about that place where we lived for a couple years, many years ago. But I want you to know about that country, about the kind of geography, and about the people. And we'll be telling you stories from Zimbabwe in the next 3 months. For this first month, we have focused on creation. And Pastor Sarah talked to you about beginnings in the very first book of the Bible, Genesis. And then Michelle Osserhus talked about creation and how to care for it and what to do to make it grow and how to trim it and so on. And now we are going to talk to you about something that's very related to creation, that's very different from our own surroundings that we have here in southern Wisconsin. So we're going to talk to you about the Baobab tree.
First, we want to show you where that grows. Solveig mentioned that we had lived somewhere else for 2 years. Well, we started in Minnesota, up here in the northern part of the United States, and then we flew across the Atlantic Ocean to Europe, to Switzerland, and then we flew south over most all of Africa, all the way down to South Africa, and then we took another airplane up to what is now Zimbabwe. We lived there 2 years, 1968 to 1970. And one of the interesting things in Zimbabwe that was in our neighborhood was this tree, the Baobab tree. This is kind of what it looked like out in the rural area where we lived at Manama at the mission. The cities looked a lot like in the U.S., but out here, this is the way it looked. And the Baobab tree was a tree that the people in Africa, in Zimbabwe, really cherished because it provided so many good things for them. One of the things that it provided was a fruit, and that fruit is shaped kind of like a football. It's not quite this big. It's probably about that big. And you split it open when it's ripe, and it's got stringy, webby stuff in there. And in that, embedded in those stringy things, are little white things about the size of a marble or so. And inside those is a seed. But what was really loved by the people was that sweetness of the white wrapping around the seed. Children would like to find those if they could, and they would crack it open, and then they'd take out one of those seeds and just suck on that white stuff. It was like candy to them. The parents liked to find them, and then they would take those and they would crush them and make a powder, and that powder they could make something to drink with, or they could sprinkle it on other things. It's one of the most nutritious foods in the whole world. Awesome food, baobab fruit powder. So it was good for their health. The other interesting thing about the baobab tree, you see how large they get? They get really big around because they can live up to, well, they say up to 6,000 years. I think most of them are not that old, but they live very long time. And they can store water in that desert climate. It's only about 10 or 12 inches of rain every year. So it would sometimes they'd have a drought on top of that. But the baobab tree would store water. So the people would go and they could peel off some of that bark, peel it back, and then they would squeeze it and get water out of there. Those trees were hollow many times, and so there would be water stored inside. And so they would maybe make a little opening like a window, go up there and dip water out, or even climb in, or even go in there and sleep if they wanted to, if it wasn't too wet. The baobab tree is called the tree of life. It's such a strange tree because it looks like it's upside down. And there are two stories. One says The God created the baobab tree, looked at it and said, oh, that's not the way I wanted it. So pulled it out and put it upside down. The other story is that the devil saw it and says, ooh, what an ugly tree, and pulled it out and put it upside down. Those are folk tales, tales told by the people in Zimbabwe and other parts. It only grows in Africa, Madagascar, and Australia. We don't have the baobab tree in the United States of America. We like the baobab tree. It's a tree of life, a tree of life.
Not only interesting trees, but people too. And in later times, when we come to talk to you about Zimbabwe, we will tell you more about the people, how they lived, what they did, what they grew, what kept them busy, what the children did, and so on. So this country, this ELCZ, Evangelical Lutheran Church in Zimbabwe, we are siblings to them. We are the ELCA, Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. So from A to Z, we are all God's children. And God created us, cares for us, and makes us each special. So thank you for letting us share our stories about Zimbabwe. And we hope that we will have more fun stories for you to enjoy in future months. Thank you very much.
See you next month.
Bye bye.
Bye now.